Hi, welcome everyone. Ananda is going to be running this session, so I'm just going to pass over to her. I just want to let you know that this is being recorded. And yeah, welcome again.
Thanks, Taruna. Hi, everybody. Nice to see some of you and some pictures and some names without other identifiers. Welcome. As you know, we're gearing up to the EES conference in September, and we thought that this would be a good opportunity to respond to any questions that you might have. So I'm here to respond to any questions that you might have. So I'll let you, Taruna, give the word to anybody that might have their hand up.
Sure. So if anyone's having internet connectivity or is a bit camera shy, just feel free to put questions in the chat. Otherwise, please just come off mute or raise your hands to be organized. And you can just start asking. Like we said, this is an Ask Me Anything session. So it's, while a few of you might have come to learn, it would be useful if, if you wanted to start asking questions.
Hi, may I?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I couldn't find the raise hand button.
No worries.
Hi, thank you for organizing. My name is Mikhail. I'm from the Independent Evaluation Office of IFAD, based in Rome. And we're planning to submit a couple of event proposals to the conference. So I've been looking at the website for the various guidance and all that. But my question was about the deadline, which I see there indicated as March 15th. So we'll try our best to meet that, but it may not be possible because it's involving multiple partners and other organizations as well. So I just wanted to ask whether there is some small margin of flexibility in possibly accepting proposals after that date. Thank you.
Thanks, Mikhail. I'll get right to your question. I think that there's a little error there. Because if you go into the system, you will see that the deadline we have is the 31st of March. So hopefully that will give you enough time. I should take the opportunity to say that we do have this rolling basis process, which has been a little bit slower than what we would have liked because we are relying on people volunteering their time to review and so on. So some proposals have already been reviewed, and we certainly have space for more. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is that the earlier you can submit, the better, because if we do get full, we're then full, right? Like, so we have a limited number of rooms. I mean, we have a lot of rooms, but still a limited, like a finite number of rooms, a finite number of time slots, and we are accepting on merit as they come. There are some proposals that might need a little bit of revision, and those are being sent back to authors asking for a small revision and will be reviewed again and so on. But all of this you can see in the system. So to answer your question, there is a little bit of latitude because it will be open until the end of the month, but I would still encourage you to submit it as soon as you can.
Okay, thank you. That's clear. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Barbara, I think.
Yeah, hi, Ananda and everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah, no, I have a couple of questions. And thank you very much for clarifying that already with the deadline, because that's definitely helpful. And because we have a number of panel proposals as well coming also. And there's two levels, one individual submissions, that's straightforward enough, I guess. But then there is these TWG submissions as well, where it has been previously clarified that these can be submitted separately to individual ones. So I was wondering how these could be made visible as official TWG submissions. So flagged as this is a panel, this submission for a panel for 8, for example, and how can they be made visible as a kind of corporate submission, if you like, as opposed to an individual submission. If I'm submitting that abstract for a panel, so several people discussing stuff, for Twig 8. How can I make that clear that this is a Twig 8 submission and not Barbara Schmidt-Abby's personal submission? So how do I flag that?
Okay, did you have a question in there about the professional development workshops as well, or did I miss something? Or
No,
it's
no,
just
this
about-
is the,
just
that's
about
the
thematic working group?
conference now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so there is a couple of answers to what you've just asked. One of them is that the board is exploring opportunities to highlight the thematic working groups within the conference. And those are, I think, maybe, I think I saw May join. May, I know that you're kind of having a little bit more of that discussion on those sessions and how those get reviewed and so on. So maybe you want to jump in on that.
Sure. I think, Barbara, we agreed that for the TWG shaped proposals, the ones that TWGs are shaping for themselves, there can be up to 2 of those. Those should be sent to me directly.
Okay.
And then I will deal with them in liaison with Ananda and ConfTool so that we can appropriately flag these up and have them appropriately registered on ConfTool and appropriately flagged up in the conference. So you're right, the TWG specific sessions that are shaped by TWG leaders should be sent to me directly. And I think that was in the email, but maybe I should check. No, I'm pretty sure I said
No, you
send
did.
them to me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's good.
So you don't have to worry about that. Those are 2 separate processes.
Okay.
Your own personal ones, just go through the normal process, registering and submitting on ConfTool directly. But for the TWG ones, as TWG 8 leader, you submit those proposals directly to me.
Perfect. Thank you for clarifying that. Yet
Not at all.
May.
Look forward to them.
Looking at the
We'll
system.
certainly look forward to them.
Okay, and just a follow up on then the individual submissions that we might do as individual members. We have a meeting of the working group on Monday. That's why I was be super crystal clear what to say there. So for the submissions that individual members of the working groups will make on their own behalf to the conference, to this conference tool, as per normal, how could they flag that this would be of interest in relation to the scope of thematic working group 8, for example? How can they indicate that in their individual proposals to the system?
I think they can highlight it. I would suggest that they highlight it in the abstract, because keep in mind that when the program is made, or they could even put it in the title if they wanted to, but when the program is made, you see the title of the presentation or panel or whatever it might be, right? Like on your app, that's what you would see. And then if you hover over it, then you will see the abstract, right? If you put it in an attachment, then the person who's looking at it would have to spend a lot of time trying to figure out, they might, but you know, I would suggest maybe put it in parentheses in the title or like early on in the abstract or something like that.
Like
and
relevant.
I would also, yeah, like relevant to persons interested in, you know.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. So that's the good work. That would work for you, to viewers as well.
Yeah,
So
because it just has to do with like how the system will read it, right?
Okay, so that's the guideline we should give to people to put it in parentheses as part of after their typo.
Yeah.
Okay, let's tell people that on Monday. That's perfect. Thank you for clarifying.
Are there any other questions? Teresa, please.
Yes, hi to everyone from me as well. Teresa Kaplan, my name, and I work for Welthungerhilfe based in Germany.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask about the panel submissions. As I noted that it says that we should submit the abstract as a panel, one jointly together. And then in the instruction, it says also something about kind of presentations or papers that we should submit along with the abstract. So I wanted to ask, do you expect a presentation or a paper from each person on the panel on the specific topic, and how elaborated should those presentations or those papers be, especially if we are planning to have a bit more kind of like an interactive discussion perhaps as part of the panel. I was wondering how much do you expect in this regard, and maybe how much weight will be put onto those presentations as part of the selection process?
Okay, so thanks for that question, actually, because as the answer is hopefully interesting to all. So one of the things that we really wanted to encourage, or we want to encourage for this conference, is that presenters are as innovative as they can be in how they present, right? So it's totally okay to have a panel with multiple paper presentations, the very classical way, but if you can come up with a more innovative way of doing that, and I'm being deliberately vague because we are not sort of saying, a dialogue or a discussion or, is better than something else, right? So what we want in that annex is not necessarily, it can be, if you want to put a PowerPoint, do that. If you have a paper that you think is really indicative of what the panel is going to be about, do that. But if you want to have a narrative explaining what the thematics are and that it will be a discussion or something like that, we will be scoring higher things that demonstrate that kind of innovation and interactivity and so on. So it's not to say if you have a kind of very traditional thing, we are not accepting that. We certainly are, and there will be lots of sessions, I'm sure, that are using a very classical approach to panel presentations or paper presentations or whatever. But we want to give presenters and submitters an opportunity to showcase a different approach to sharing their knowledge and perspectives. So to answer your question very specifically, we're very flexible on what attachment you provide. We would encourage you to provide something that best, in your view, demonstrates what's interesting about your session, beyond obviously the thematic itself, which I'm sure will be interesting in its own right. But the theme and what about it, or what about bringing these people together in this particular forum, this particular mechanism or way, is particularly interesting or engaging, or the audience should be particularly keen to attend because of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat, so please feel free to come off mute. Nanda, what? Oh yeah.
Hi.
Joanna, please go
Hi.
ahead.
I had a question around like the formats that were suggested around the fishbowl, or the kind of more kind of workshopy discussion ones, in terms of like solution finding or presenting a solution to discuss further. And what sort of differences do you see in like what that fishbowl idea represents, and say like more, the kind of interactive participatory workshop type thing for the solutions one?
Okay, so the fishbowl in relation to, I'm not muted. I mute myself and then I forget. The fishbowl, as opposed to say most of the other ones, except for maybe sparking discussion. So sparking discussion and fishbowl, let me kind of cover those maybe a little bit together, because those two are really trying to engage the audience in a very participatory way to share knowledge on a, let's say, broader concept, right? Sparking discussion is even a little bit looser than fishbowl. Like fishbowl, you will have some presentations. Sparking discussion is almost you have like this idea that you want to bring people together to discuss around. So I hope that that kind of clarifies that. Like the fishbowl, we see it as a pretty classic kind of. So the solution finding, it's got the difference between solution finding and solution workshops is basically at what stage there's a problem that you're interested in. At what stage in arriving to the conclusion or to a possible solution are you? And solution finding, it's not like, if you think about a fishbowl or a sparking discussion, it can be anybody can kind of come in with any sort of knowledge in this particular area or subject matter and have an opinion about that. A solution finding session is really destined to help you find a solution to an issue that you're very specific about. So although quite interactive, the level of interactivity depends on you, on what you ask your audience to participate in, what you ask your audience to engage in, to what level, to what purpose, right? The solution workshop is you already got to the end. You had a problem, you already figured out the solution, and now you want to share that solution with your audience. So it's a workshop in the sense that the expectation is not that you present as a paper, like, I thought about this and here's the solution, but that you do it on a kind of workshop, more training, interactive, that your audience is able to participate in what the implementation of the solution might be, but not necessarily in helping you find it. Hope that that helps to clarify the distinction between those two.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, perfect.
Jessica?
I'm seeing Teresa with the.
I think you came first, but I'll ask Teresa in case it's a legacy hand.
No, I have another question, but you can go first, Jessica, I feel like, as I already
Oh.
had one question.
So hello, I'm Jessica. I'm a young and emerging evaluator. I'm working as junior consultant, and looking for applying for a bursary. And I would like to know if any type of submission is more suitable for us, given we are not experienced as the senior evaluators, like for proposed papers or round table, something like this. So I appreciate your guidance if any type of submissions are more suitable for us.
Okay, so there is like an answer and a half to your question. On the one hand, no, right? Like if you have the issue with any session, with the exception of like a paper or a poster, is that you need to set it up yourself, like a panel. You need to know the other people. So if a group of you come together and decide that you want to do a specific session on a particular topic, that would be fine. It's just the number, for example, if you have a solution finding session, you need 2 contributors, right? So you would need to kind of engage one of your colleagues and say, okay, here's the problem. This is what I'm having. I think that would be a really good opportunity for you as a young evaluator, for example, to say, okay, this is something that I see a lot, and I would like to get the collective to help me figure out a possible solution to this, or right? So there are no sessions that that we would say, okay, this is for young and emerging evaluators, and for this, they're not qualified. You are very qualified. You're young and emerging, but you have a lot of knowledge that we definitely want to hear about, and we would love to hear that in as many different formats as is possible. So that's the kind of direct answer to your question. The other thing is that we are currently exploring, but this is not finalized. So keep an eye out for our website, and hopefully we'll be able to put this together. but to have senior evaluators curate some sessions with younger evaluators. And that would entail a senior evaluator deciding on a topic and then accepting proposals to that topic. So that might not be interesting at all to you, depending on what those topics are and who we're able to get on board. And big caveat, we haven't been able to 100% secure this, so we're working on it, but just to keep an eye out for it, it might be interesting as well. And for now, I would say it would be great if you do a paper, of course, that would be fine. But if you do something else, that would also be really ideal. So it has to do a little bit with who you can bring on board more than anything else.
Thank you.
Teresa?
Yeah, thanks. I have another question that came to my
Please.
mind. And it links a little bit what Jessica was asking about young evaluators. But specifically, I would like to ask if, if we are submitting a panel and on that panel there are young evaluators or people from the Global South, how should we mark this in the submission? As I also didn't quite, it's not very clear where exactly we should.
Okay, so in the abstract, if it doesn't take you too much space to just highlight something like that, it would be good to be able, I mean, you don't have to provide the names of people or anything like that, but to say, to give a rationale for that justification. But of course, you can also do it in the annexes. And let me take the opportunity to really highlight that we are marking on that. So we are marking on diversity, and we are flexible about where we read it. Reviewers, I mean. So if it's in the abstract, great. If it's in one of the annexes, great. But we do pay attention to whether or not, and just to give you an example, I recently saw a review that the author is getting emailed on about how we think there is diversity there, but we're not 100% sure. Could they underline that? Right? So we want to have diversity. We want to have young and emerging. We want to be able to know where you put it. The reason why I suggest, if it's possible to in some way include it in the abstract, that would be the best option. The reason why I say that is for the same reason that I mentioned earlier when Barbara was asking about where to put the thematic working group. The abstract, the little short spiel, is what people attending your session will be able to see in the app. Whereas if you put it in the annex, we would obviously give you the points in the review, but somebody attending might not realize, oh, this is going to be a really diverse group of people presenting. It's going to have people from the Global South. It's going to have young and emerging evaluators, and maybe more ideas than what I can provide myself, having been around for too long, or something like that, right? So if you can highlight it, even like a sentence, like this will be presented by a multidisciplinary or something like that. Like you can get into the details in the annexes that you provide us, but yeah,
sure. And by the annexes, you mean the presentations or the attachment, the additional attachments, right?
Most of them you have like two options, and in some of them you only have one attachment, but you can always add like a paragraph at the top of it, even if what you were attaching was a paper.
Sure.
Right.
No, that's really helpful. Thanks. Because I think in the abstract, it can be a bit difficult to say, and out of this panel of 4 people, there might be one person that is from the book, to kind of name it.
No, I mean, I would say something much more like, the panel is presenting views from the Global South and, or includes views from the Global South. It's something but you can do it also in the attachment.
Thanks.
Barbara, please, and then Joanna.
Thank you thank you for that. It's really interesting to hear the other questions and answers as well. So based on some of the things that were raised already by I think Jessica and Teresa, I also have a follow-up question, and that relates to this inclusion of different people and diversity and from different perspectives. And for example, we have a number of discussions with people that might be interested to come, but then there is this a bit of a chicken and egg situation. So when they don't know yet whether they can come to the conference because it's depending on bursaries or other feasibility criteria, so then one cannot perhaps put a name there. So is it possible to give make a proposal with an aspiration? For example, we want to do a panel or discussion or other formats, whatever, on such and such a topic, and this is designed to be as diverse as possible, etc. But we don't have the commitment of people yet. So how to deal with that? Can we just throw in a proposal saying that we're hoping to discuss this with these criteria, without putting then presenter names on it? So how do we deal with this rolling uncertainty, making proposals?
Okay, so yeah, so you bring up a couple of points. If there are questions about bursaries, I think May is better positioned to answer those. But just to say that the bursary process is a little bit separate from the proposal process, in the sense that within CONF2 Pro, everybody, including those who will apply for bursaries, are submitting their proposals, and those proposals are being evaluated and reviewed by the review team, irrespective of whether or not they have the resources to come, right? Like, that's not something that the blind review process is just on the quality of the proposal and nothing else, right? And then of course for the bursaries, but May can jump in a moment on this, you need to have an accepted proposal, right? Like, you won't get a bursary, I think, unless you have submitted something which has been approved. Yeah, okay, so there's that part of the question. The second part, the second part of the answer is you need to be able to provide names, because the system will demand that you provide names. So my approach to that would be, we assume goodwill, right? Like, a lot of things can happen between now and September, and not showing up because you didn't have the resources to buy your plane ticket, or because you didn't get a visa, or because you got the flu the day before. Like, a lot of things can happen, and a lot of things do happen. And I was working on the program last round, and of course you get a lot of people, not a lot, but you get a number of people who say, I had full intention to come, but unfortunately this, that, or, for personal reasons, I can no longer make it. And that happens. I have been in panels myself where there were 4 presentations and 2 were not there. So, that's just life, right? So we just kind of assume and hope that the people that you have put in are able to put in, or are able to come. Then the next thing I would say attached to that would be, if you do have a panel, for example, or a multi-person session, and you have a participant which intended to come and for whatever reason is not going to be able to do so, we can't have a hybrid conference, because it's basically too costly. But what we can do is accommodate a presentation that is put on the screen, like a video presentation. So of course it's not ideal, but whoever is participating or intended to participate, who can no longer be there for reasons outside of their control, can always make a contribution. And particularly it's easier, to be frank, if it's like a panel that you yourself organized, then you can make sure that the presentation is there. When you're submitting a paper and you can't come, and you then send a video instead, it's actually a little bit harder to coordinate, because who's going to be the person that remembers to get the video and introduce it and so on, right? So there's a couple of ways around that, but we would essentially assume good faith. And we assume good faith in relation to all the proposals, that you are submitting something on the presumption that all plans currently in February are going to still be in place in September, and we will be meeting as we intend.
Great, thank you, Anna. That's very
No
helpful.
We have a question from Joanna, and then I'll read a message in the chat. Thanks.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you. It actually just follows on and is a bit of a practical one. And you mentioned that there's the two processes for the bursary and the submissions were separated. And I was wondering, so I'm planning to submit with some of my colleagues who are Ugandan and Egyptian, and they are going to apply for a bursary as well. It'll be the only way that they can attend. So should we submit submit the abstract, as in just submit the abstract, and then they attach that same abstract to their bursary application? Or do we do it, do you want it twice, or how would it work in terms of that?
Normally, I think, but may correct me, I think that the only thing you need to do is make reference of the number of the abstract in your bursary application. Because if you say, you know, my submission is number 766 or whatever, and then those reviewing the bursary application will be able to see, has this submission been accepted? And that's the only kind of link criteria, right? The criteria for bursaries, May can speak to, I don't know what they are, but from the conference program side, it's only that that person has a submission and that submission has been scored and accepted.
Yeah.
So I think it's enough if you just say, you know, and when you go into ConfTool Pro, you will see, you know, your number of submission.
Yeah, that's great. It says on the application for the bursaries, and your abstract submission. So I didn't realize there was a number that you do.
There is a number. There's a number to it. So I don't think you need anything else. May, do you want to? Because I'm not doing bursaries, but I think the number should be sufficient, like number and title.
Yeah, no, that will be fine. And bursaries, you know, I have to be honest, it's a real struggle this year to get the level of sponsorship that we've had in the past, and it's been a real challenge. I think the economic climate is different. Post-COVID, things are different, and we are working extremely hard to get in sponsorship funds. We are extremely keen to be able to offer a good array of bursaries. Normally, the bursaries privilege people who come from countries in receipt of ODI, but we are hoping to make that more flexible this year. And we are hoping, if we can get the funds to include European young and emerging evaluators, for example, people who have financial disadvantage and can't get to the conference unless they get some support. But it is difficult. And all I can say is we are really doing our best, but it is harder this year than it's ever been before.
Great. And just on that, is it a first come, first serve for the bursaries as well?
No, bursaries are reviewed by a panel. So all bursary applications will be reviewed on the basis of their quality, suitability. And the details of the bursary process are on the website.
Yes.
We are tinkering a little bit with the actual form, so I'm sorry if there's been there's at the moment something we're sorting out in terms of the actual system components, but that's on the way to being fine, and it should be clear and easy within coming days. We hope to be able to start pushing bursaries on the basis that we get more funding in to be able to support them. But it is something that is a very high priority for us, but as I say, a particular challenge this year, sponsorship.
Thanks, May. I think, sorry, Joanna, did you have a follow-up?
No, it was just kind of to know, maybe the challenge, say, for one of the submissions that I'm planning with this group is that if they don't get a bursary, then the format that we chosen wouldn't be met. And so it's will you decide all the bursaries and then decide all the abstracts, or are they going to be done in parallel? And therefore, if we got accepted, but then actually, and I know what you said about goodwill, but actually the people who the main people wouldn't be able to come. So like it is a bit of a cat and mouse. I think Barbara was talking about a similar thing, and just like, you know, how we can be as responsive or as helpful and useful in that process as well.
Yeah,
I mean,
Joanna,
oh, sorry,
the-
May, go
I
ahead.
could just, on the bursaries, you know, we are so keen to be as inclusive as possible, and we're caught between a kind of rock and a hard place. This is a hard call. And I'm personally very keen to offer whatever support that I can. And where things fall through a crack in the kinds of unpredictabilities that you're talking about, then I'm always available. Come to me. Things we can do is, I mean, I'm cold calling, not quite relentlessly, but it's almost like a full-time, you know, I'm really trying hard to get in some funding. Sometimes a joint approach on the basis of a proposal to some sponsors for what then becomes a targeted effort, you know, on one that has a demonstrable, concrete, you know, set of presentations and so forth. So if down the line you find yourself in that situation and things have become difficult in terms of funding, come back to me and let's do a joint effort on trying to secure it.
Great, thank you so much.
I could just add one thing on the program side. My suggestion would be to encourage you to submit kind of in good faith. And if it doesn't work, and then if all your efforts, as May suggested, don't pan out, which obviously I sincerely hope is not the case, but if that were the case, then come to me because we might be able to either change this session to a different kind of session, explore other opportunities. I don't know. I don't know what your session will be about, but or what the setup is. But if there's a different way of doing it, like say you set it up as a workshop and you want it a particular way, but it's not going to be possible, or you know, whatever that might be, we might together be able to change it. And in reality, you know, that kind of shifts we are prepared for. Okay.
Perfect, thank you. So we have two questions in the chat. I think the first one, Ananda, will go to May. So Teresa is asking, following up on the questions of Barbara regarding colleagues, participants not knowing whether they will come, are the conference fees published somewhere already? I know of colleagues who struggle to find how much the participation would cost, what budget to plan for, and face this as a barrier to requesting coverage of costs for their organizations.
Yeah, I'll come in on this one. Okay. Straight up, I've got good news and I've got bad news. The good news is that if you look around, and especially if you start quite early, for accommodation in Rimini, Rimini is a big holiday resort, and there's, you know, Airbnbs, there's some smaller hotels, there's some places that you can find that will be fairly affordable. It can work out that Rimini certainly will be cheaper to come to than Copenhagen, for example. And for people coming from within Europe, you know, there's lots of budget airlines fly direct into Bologna, and then it's the airport navette from Bologna to Rimini. So it should be possible. Of course, we're hoping that more people come by train, but you know, realities are that quite a lot of people will fly in. And on that side, we're hoping that that compensates for what has been a necessary increase in our costs. Our venue is expensive. It's actually a cheaper venue than other ones that we could have chosen, and certainly other ones in Italy. But prices have been hiked up there. And so we are, again, this is just the realities of a very difficult situation we're in. We've tried to keep them down, but no, we have had to put up the fees. So for a member, the 3 days of the conference will be €680. And that's the base for members coming in and booking into the conference. in a timely way. Late registrations, of course, will have to be more expensive. And these dates for registration are already in hand and are about to be published. You will be able to pre-register for the conference. So you can pre-register and pay subsequently. And that would enable you to maximize the opportunities for getting the floor level rates. And we expect that registrations will open within the next 3 weeks or so. So keep an eye on that. And all of the pricings will be put up there. We have a student rate, and we can allow for a one-day rate as well. And I'm trying to remember off my head what the student rate is. I think the student rate is 340 for the 3 days. Now, I mean, quite a number of our younger constituency will be able to get some kind of confirmation of some student activity, some student status on courses and so forth. So we're hoping that that also acts as a bit of an emollient in this respect. We have to say too that although we've really tried to peg these costs best we can, we do see that conferences in general are going up, and that these are actually quite reasonable compared for some of the other conferences we see going on this year. So that's the best we can do. But again, you know, where there's a need for funds, I do think that a joint approach with a particular group concerned may be a good way forward for trying to get some sponsorship if we've been unable to get enough ourselves to cover people who would otherwise be eligible for bursaries, but we haven't had enough money to cover all of the bursaries that we want.
Thanks, May. May, we have another follow-up question from Barbara. It's about bursaries again. Do people have to be EES members? What about members from other evaluation associations elsewhere?
Bursaries, no. Bursaries are open. We wouldn't expect an evaluator. Somebody was talking about bringing in colleagues from Uganda. I wouldn't expect that they would have signed up for membership of the EES, and we won't prejudice them on that basis at all. No, the bursaries are open.
Thank you, May. Those are only the questions that we had. Does anyone else have any questions? Would you like to raise your hands, because we don't have any other questions in the chat that have not been answered? Ananda, do you want to wait a couple of minutes, or would you like to finish the session early? How do you prefer?
We can wait a couple minutes, but I mean, I think, have we been getting people coming in? I have seen people coming in.
Yeah.
As we were, so I would say we can wait a couple minutes. Just in case somebody comes in super late with the one question that they have answered, or that they want to have answered.
Ananda, also just for the benefit of the group, you can explain to them maybe, do you know how you said that if there's people shouldn't hesitate?
Yes.
The
thematic working group, the professional development workshops. Okay, so let me just clarify two things that we have gotten a number of questions on. One of them is this limit of 2. It's linked to the other thing that I'm going to say. So the limit of 2 proposals is tied to the person, not to the organization, department, anything else. Just the human being who is expected to physically be in that room. So that is, we have the limit for programming purposes, so that we're able to develop a coherent program that really highlights all the really great presentations and panels and workshops and so on. And so with the limit of 2, there are a couple of exceptions. One is posters, because of course you don't have to stand next to your poster at all times. So you can have a poster and also be involved in another session. The other exception is professional development workshops, which take place before the main conference. This is particularly important for those of you who want to submit a proposal for the professional development workshop and have already submitted 2 proposals. You will get an error from the system saying you have maxed out. Okay? In that case, please write to me on the program email and tell me that, and I will go into the system and provide you the right to make additional submissions under professional development workshops. Unfortunately, there is no way around that workaround. So I talked to the technical team. There was no way that I could make an exception that doesn't involve you dropping a line to ES program 2024, I think it is, at Gmail, and saying, could you please, I have 2 submissions. Those submissions could, by the way, be you already submitted for the professional development workshop, and you submitted another proposal, and you want to now submit a 3rd one. Then you need to let me know. And usually I can get to it fairly quickly within the same day or something. It just entails me knowing your full name, the way it's in the system, and I go in and I find you and I put on, I tick something that gives you the override possibility. So yeah, that's what you meant, Taruna, right? Or are there any other questions that we've been getting a lot that we should be answering?
I think also it would be useful to clarify that people shouldn't hesitate to submit, and that we send back proposals. Do you want to talk about that now?
Yes. So as I said at the beginning, we have this rolling system, and our objective is not to reject proposals. Our objective is to work with submitters to improve the quality of proposals as much as it can be, or align them, or in some cases support bidders or in drafting it in a way that might be more accessible to our audience and things like that. So the reason why we have this rolling system is also to allow time for proposers to have a dialogue with reviewers, get their comments, be able to refine their proposal and get it accepted and so on. So I think that I would really encourage all of you, if you haven't done so already, to submit as early as possible and to take advantage of that dialogue as much time as you can to have this feedback. We have a great review team. They all have different insights. So sometimes it's really good to just have somebody else's feedback and to kind of go like, oh, well, I didn't think about it that way, but I can see that this or that can be changed a little bit, or there are opportunities. And in my case, I can only speak from last time. There were instances where I would say, this is great paper, but maybe actually is even a better workshop, or this is a great individual paper, but would you not consider doing it also as something else or more interactive or whatever? So we've tried to work with submitters in this way, and we certainly wanted to give ourselves and submitters time to do that with this rolling basis process. And I have to say, submissions so far have been excellent. So we're very happy.
Thanks, Ananda. Ananda, we've just had a question in the chat, which is from Robert, and he says, sorry if he's missed this, but if we have a paper accepted, do we still have to pay the conference cost? He assumes the answer is yes.
I mean, the answer is yes. Yeah, we did have this question, I think, a fair amount in the past. Unfortunately, and is May still with us?
Yeah,
you're here. So you might want to follow up on what I have to say. But unfortunately, what we're charging is to pay for our costs. So the team here today and others working on this, we are not salaried employees. we are providing our time voluntarily, and the cost, or what we charge and what determines the cost of the conference, is very much tied to what the conference costs the EES to put up, and yeah, so that we don't go bankrupt. And there's some legislation that would send all of us board members to jail if we did that. So we really want to avoid going bankrupt. May, do you
Yeah,
want?
no, just echo that. It's a really costly, a terrifyingly daunting level of costs involved in mounting a conference like this. And I'm not sleeping very well at the moment because the costs of the venue, I mean, it's just, when you look and there's so many noughts after the number that you look and you think, oh, we're talking hundreds of thousands here.
What you're thinking is, I wish it was lira, but okay.
But yeah, so no, I mean, the conference is for the delegates. It's for everybody to come together and share and debate, share their knowledge and debate and work towards the development of evaluation as a collective. And that's the collective. And it's a privilege for us to organize it, but we feel it's a privilege to be there and to share with like-minded individuals. And unfortunately, it carries a necessary cost because of the huge overheads that are involved here.
Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. So, Joanna, you have your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you for answering all my questions. Just in terms of the abstracts and the submission and the annexes, for example, we're considering submitting under the solution finding session around, it was about feminist learning, but like really trying to challenge ourselves with a group of people to discuss that. And then, but in terms of like the minimum 2-page presentation and approach, we haven't like developed that yet, like in terms of, we were going to use some of our learning and talk about it in a very interactive way. Like, what sort of thing are you looking for when it's not about a paper submission?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go on.
So what we meant by issue/tool/approach is that it could be any of those things. It could be the issue. You could just have a couple pages saying, this is what we intend to talk about. This is why we intend to talk about it, and give you a little bit more space than the abstract, which is really pretty short, let's be honest, right? Or it could be like, we have developed this tool, or we're in the process of developing this tool if it's solution finding, and we want to discuss this and that element of this tool, and that could be a couple pages. Or it could be, the approach that you want to take to doing it. We're going to present this subject in this extremely interactive way, and we're going to use, I don't know, acrobatics, for example.
Can I come in on this?
Yes, May, for sure.
Yeah, it's important to note that you can make adjustments to your abstract later on. So if, for example, you're in solutions session and you have, between submitting the abstract and shortly before the presentation at the conference, you have new information that you wish to present, and you want to capture that in the abstract, and you would want to capture that in the abstract because the abstracts are crucial in that that's what participants see and guide them to your session.
Yeah.
So you can go in and you will be able to amend your abstract. You can change names on your abstract. We get notification that you have done so. So, we would notice if there was a completely different abstract put in, and get back to you pretty sharp on that. But, within reasonable bounds, it's important that you have the opportunity to reframe certain aspects of your work according to where your work is at nearer the time of the event.
And that, by the way, also extends to annexes, right? That you can switch them in and out. Like if you have like a core idea now and then you want to do something more later, or, you know.
Brilliant, thank you.
No worries. Alrighty. Well, I don't think anybody new is coming now. We're closing in 5. So if there are no other questions, I would like to just say thank you very much for coming. I hope that this served to clarify some of the doubts and concerns and lack of clarity on our side. We realize, of course, there's a lot of information in there and it can get confusing and where do you all fit? But we are here to support this process and to support you being part of the conference and having a conference experience that is the most positive possible.
And I echo that most heartily.
So yeah, so thank you for coming and for your questions, and we look forward to see you and your colleagues in Rimini.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
cheers.
And have a nice
Bye.
weekend.
Bye, 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 bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much.
Thank you. Bye. May? Oh, I lost.
May's
May's
dropped
gone.
off.
I have another meeting with her, but I was just gonna say, can I call you back in 5 minutes? I was getting a phone call during this thing. Okay, anyway, thank you so much, Taruna.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.